The night my husband decided to break me, the city outside our penthouse glittered like it was in on the joke. Manhattan does, as that shines the brightest when your life goes dark. Logan stood in the doorway of our bedroom in his black tux bow tie, undone the smell of expensive whiskey clinging to him like a second skin. He looked like a man who'd won, and maybe he thought he had. "You're sleeping in the guest room tonight," he said. "No hesitation, no guilt, just command, until you apologize. To me, and to Sloane." Her name hit harder than anything else. I didn't answer right away. Not because I was shocked. Shock requires innocence. Mine died months ago, somewhere between his late-night strategy meetings and the grapefruit and bergamot perfume that started appearing on his suits. Logan took one step closer. His voice dropped to the tone he reserved for boardrooms and threats dressed as advice. "Don't make this ugly, Avery. You embarrassed me tonight. You embarrassed her. Sloane, the consultant who somehow knew our floor plan. The woman who touched his tie at dinner like she'd done it 100 times. The woman who laughed when I didn't." I kept my eyes on him even as humiliation burned my throat raw. "And what exactly," I asked quietly, "am I apologizing for acting jealous?" His lip curled. "For acting out. For questioning something you don't understand." He exhaled sharply. "You've become difficult. The word men use when they realize the puppet has noticed the strings. A long time ago I would have pleaded, negotiated, cried, tried to fix us. But something in me had shifted during that dinner, something I couldn't unshift, even if I wanted to." "Okay," I said. He blinked, confused for a split second. "Okay." I stood unhooking the pearl earrings he'd chosen for me. They clicked softly against the nightstand, like they were marking the end of something. "You want me in the guest room?" I said, passing him. "I'll go." He didn't know that while he was pouring himself another drink downstairs, I'd be packing the first pieces of my escape. He didn't know the guest room wasn't a punishment for me. It was the first room in the house he didn't control, the first door I could close. He had no idea the lesson he tried to teach me that night was going to be the one that destroyed him. People always assume breaking points are loud, plates thrown, doors slammed, screaming matches that shake the walls, but mine wasn't loud at all. It was a slow, quiet erosion, like water eating away rock, until one day you realize there's a canyon where solid ground used to be. 12 years. That's how long Logan and I had been married. It sounds like stability. It wasn't. It was 12 years of tiny compromises that felt harmless at the time. 12 years of sure, it's fine, whatever you need, until all those words formed a cage I didn't notice until it locked. In the beginning, we were partners, real ones. The kind who stayed up until 3 a.m, building pitch decks on our glitchy second-hand laptops, who ate takeout on the floor because we couldn't afford furniture. The kind who believed in the stupidly romantic idea that building something together meant we'd always be on the same team. Lane and Mercer Advisory started on a kitchen counter covered in coffee rings. We were hungry, driven, broke, happy. I drafted contracts. Logan pitched. I created frameworks. He sold them. It worked until it didn't. The shift started around year 4, right after Alden Group acquired our little firm. Richard Alden, the kind of billionaire who could make a grown executive sweat with just a raised eyebrow, liked Logan. Not us. Logan. "He has presence," Alden said once, clapping Logan on the back. "He's a leader." Leader. That word did things to Logan, made him stand straighter, made him talk louder, made him forget we were equals. Within months, Logan started attending meetings without me. "Too many cooks," he said. Then he started rewriting my slides. "They need a stronger voice," he said. Then he started leaving my name off decks entirely. "Clients connect better when there's one face," he said. That face wasn't mine. I remember the exact moment I realized I'd been pushed to the edge of the story we created together. It was at the Alden Winter Retreat. Logan gave a speech about the foundation of our firm, while I stood in the back, holding his coat invisible in a sea of sequins and tailored suits. "My wife has always supported me," he said proudly. I didn't miss the shift from partner to supporter. One word and my entire identity was quietly relocated. People think identity theft happens by force. Sometimes it happens with applause. After the acquisition, Logan hired a stylist, Miriam, a woman who spoke in adjectives like elevated, polished, curated. She walked through our closet like a real estate agent, appraising property value. "Navy," she announced. "Black, cream, maybe blush. No bright colors, no patterns, no green. Green is try hard." Logan nodded along as if she were diagnosing a disease I'd given myself. "Avery needs to look effortless," he said. What does that mean, I'd asked. It means elevated women don't need to shout, he replied. But Navy every day feels a lot like silence. In photos, we looked perfect, like a magazine spread titled Power Couple Rises in Manhattan. But perfection is heavy. It takes effort. It requires performance. And I was the one doing all the backstage work. Hosting dinners, memorizing clients' wives' names, keeping track of who hated shellfish and who never touched red wine, laughing at jokes that weren't funny because it made the table smoother, the deal cleaner. You're so good at this, Logan would say, handing me a fresh list of guests. You just have a natural talent for people stuff. People stuff. A cute little phrase that meant everything you do benefits me. Meanwhile, my own work, the strategic frameworks, the contract language, the methodology that built our firm, was treated like a hobby. Something he tolerated. Something that didn't fit the image anymore. The worst part, I believed him. I told myself I was helping us. I told myself that love looked like sacrifice. I told myself he'd come back to center eventually. But people don't come back to center if the world keeps rewarding them for drifting. And the world loved rewarding Logan. Every promotion, every spotlight, every headline inflated him just a little more, until there was barely any room left for me in the house we shared. I became the kind of wife who made sure the lighting was flattering when guests arrived. The kind who chose chairs based on which ones made him look taller in photos. The kind who asked, "What do you need?" before asking, "How do I feel?" I stopped wearing my Barnard sweatshirt because it didn't match the visual brand. I stopped taking on private clients because Logan said it made him look like he couldn't provide. I stopped wearing my grandmother's emerald ring because he said it was dated. I stopped being me because he needed space. Ironically, all that space I gave him is what allowed another woman to slip right in. And once she did, Logan didn't hesitate to make room for her. There's a moment in every marriage where you look at your partner and quietly wonder, do you even see me anymore? Or do you only see the version of me you've built in your head? For me, that moment came on a Tuesday morning. Logan was getting ready for a board presentation, pacing across our bedroom, with notes in one hand and his phone in the other. The windows were wide open, and the pale winter light made everything look colder, him included. I'd spent the night before drafting talking points, cleaning up his slides, restructuring his framework because his strategy was a mess, and he'd asked for a quick polish. 4 hours later, I handed him something board ready. He didn't even look at me when he said, "Good. This is why I need you. Not thank you. Not you saved me. Just need." Like I was a resource, a tool. "Did you read the last section?" I asked softly. "The risk analysis?" He waved me off. "I'll get to it." But I knew he wouldn't. He never read the parts I wrote. "Logan," I tried again, "there's language in there. The board will push back on God." "Avery," he snapped, "can you just let me handle my own presentation?" The words hit with a sting I didn't expect. My stomach twisted. "I am letting you handle it," I said. "I'm just trying to help." He grabbed his tie, shoved it around his collar, fingers fumbling. "Help, you're overstepping." Again. "You don't understand the political dynamics here." Political dynamics. That was the new phrase he'd picked up from Alden, right alongside optics and controlling the narrative. He tried knotting the tie again, but it came out crooked. After a few failed attempts, he thrust it toward me like it was my fault. "Can you?" He exhaled sharply. "Just make it straight. I should have walked away." Instead, I stepped forward out of old habit, fixing the silk knot the way I always did, tightening it carefully against his throat. He softened instantly. "That's better," he murmured, like I was an assistant, not a wife. As I adjusted the collar, I noticed the faintest hint of grapefruit perfume. My chest tightened. "You're wearing a new cologne?" I asked. He blinked. "What, no?" "Same as always." But it wasn't. It was Sloane's scent, the one I'd later learned she wore like a signature. The board loved her. Logan loved being loved. I should have connected the dots sooner. Back then, Sloane was everywhere. She happened to be at the same coffee shops Logan frequented. She accidentally joined calls she wasn't invited to. She stopped by our apartment once to drop off some files she could have emailed. I came home to find her in our kitchen, chatting with Logan, pouring herself sparkling water like she belonged there. She smiled at me with that polished, effortless confidence women in Manhattan learn young. "I know something you don't." She had follow-up questions, Logan explained later. Annoyed, I even asked, "Don't make it weird." But it was weird. It was weird how he defended her. Weird how he spoke about her like she was a prodigy. Weird how tight his voice got when I said her strategy plan was sloppy. "You don't know her like I do," he snapped. That sentence sat in my chest like a bruise. Another bruise came the night he changed my meeting with a long-term client and moved it without telling me so he could have a dinner with Sloan. "You weren't needed," he said flatly when I confronted him. "You're not part of that account anymore. Not part." Those 2 words felt like erasure. A week after that, he asked me not to attend the firm gala. "It's better for optics if you skip this one," he said, not even looking up from his phone. "For optics?" I repeated. "Yes," he said, impatient. "You bring personal interests into business conversations. It confuses people. Personal interests. My interests were the company we built." I stared at him across the marble kitchen island, the gold pendant lights reflecting in his glass of bourbon. He didn't flinch. He didn't apologize. He didn't care. Somewhere in the walls, a vent rattled. Something always rattled in that apartment. I just never realized it was me. The thing that finally broke whatever faith I had left was small. So small it almost didn't matter. One night I found my book on the bottom shelf of Logan's office. A worn copy of Boundaries and Power in Negotiation, full of my notes, dog-eared pages, highlighted theories. It was the book that shaped how I wrote contracts, including the acquisition contract with Alden. I opened it, flipping to a page I'd scribbled on years ago when Logan and I were still dreamers. "You said this chapter changed everything," I whispered. "Did it?" Logan asked from the doorway, disinterested. "You said you built half your leadership style on it." He shrugged. "I say things, Avery. It's called persuasive framing. Persuasive framing, not truth, not memory, not us." That was the night I realized I wasn't losing Logan. I'd already lost him. And worse, he wasn't even looking for me. He didn't see me anymore. Only the version of me that made him look good. The girl who smiled. The wife who hosted. The partner who disappeared quietly. Except I wasn't quiet anymore. Because once you notice the walls closing in, you start checking for cracks. And once you find a crack, you start making plans. Real plans. Plans men like Logan never see coming. People think decisions like mine happen in a burst of fury. They don't. They happen in silence. Dangerous, steady silence when your heart finally gets tired of being reasonable. After that dinner, after hearing my husband defend another woman with more warmth than he'd shown me in years, something inside me clicked into place. Not loudly, not violently, just irreversibly. I sat in the guest room that night, the door closed, the hum of the city muffled behind thick walls. The lamp on my grandmother's old desk cast a small circle of light, just enough to think clearly. For once, no one was watching me. No one was grading my reactions. I made tea in the Barnard mug Logan hated. I wrapped a blanket around my shoulders, and I stared at my reflection in the dark window until I saw the truth. He didn't love me. He loved the version of me that served him, and I was done serving. So I made a plan. Not an emotional one, a strategic one. The kind I used to bill for clients before Logan decided people work was my lane. Step 1, withdraw. Not dramatically, strategically. Stop engaging in his tantrums. Stop reacting to his corrections. Stop giving him emotional fuel. Silence is kryptonite for men who feast on control. Step 2, gather proof. Every receipt, every bank statement, every hotel charge, every consulting fee, every whisper Miguel had seen from the lobby. Logan liked to say I had a memory like a filing cabinet. He forgot that filing cabinets can burn a house down. Step 3, financial independence, new accounts, new passwords, my name only. Money doesn't lie, and I refuse to remain dependent on a man who weaponized every dollar. Step 4, legal positioning. Call Dana. Trust the woman who told me years ago. One day you'll need to protect yourself from the man you're defending. Step 5, exit. Not a messy exit, a clean surgical one that leaves no room for him to rewrite the story. And step 6, the only rule that mattered. No begging, no justifying, no explaining myself to a man who stopped listening long ago. By sunrise, the plan was complete, and so was I. The first morning in the guest room didn't feel triumphant. It felt unnervingly quiet. The sheets were stiffer than the ones in the primary bedroom. The light was softer, too. Morning sun filtered through thin curtains instead of the blackout panels Logan insisted on. Everything looked slightly off, like my life had slipped 1 inch out of alignment overnight. But that misalignment was the first moment of freedom I'd had in years. I pushed myself upright, feeling the cool wooden floor under my feet. My grandmother's desk sat in the corner, the one piece of furniture Logan never bothered to notice. It was small scratched and didn't make sense with the penthouse aesthetic. Too sentimental, he'd once called it, but it grounded me more than any marble countertop or imported rug ever had. I touched the worn edge with my palm. This room wasn't punishment. It was reclamation. I made coffee the way I like it, strong, no vanilla syrup, no cinnamon. None of the heart-healthy additions his mother preached like scripture. Just coffee, black, bitter, real. Then I opened the window. A stupid thing, maybe. But Logan hated outside air, said the city smelled like old shoes and broken dreams. I let it in anyway. Cars honked below. Someone yelled across the street. A dog barked. It felt good, human, imperfect, alive. I sat at the desk with my mug and opened a blank notepad. At first I wrote small things, my name, my schedule, the errands I used to do. Then the words grew claws. My time, my work, my shares, my life. The list turned into a blueprint, and one I'd been drafting subconsciously for years. I wrote until my hand cramped. By noon I showered, changed into jeans, real jeans, not the polished curated wardrobe Logan's stylist assembled, and tied my hair in a messy knot that would have made him twitch. The first stop was Dana Morales. Her office was in a converted brownstone on the Upper West Side, warm light real wood books stacked like they were meant to be used. Dana stood when she saw me, her expression tightening, with the kind of recognition women reserve for other women in distress. You finally came, she said. Not surprised. Not judgmental. Certain. Yeah, I breathed. I did. She motioned me to sit. I handed her the folder I'd been building, hotel charges, mysterious transfers, screenshots Miguel sent, digital copies of statements from the home office printer. As she flipped through it, her eyebrows arched higher and higher. Avery, she said, voice low, this isn't a divorce file. It's a case study in corporate siphoning. He said they were consulting fees, I murmured. Dana snorted. If Sloane Reeves is a consultant, I'm a circus acrobat. I exhaled shakily, but her sarcasm steadied me. I need to get out, I said, and I need to do it clean. You will, she said, and you'll do better than clean, you'll do it documented. Then she dropped a bomb I didn't see coming. I kept the Mercer file. I blinked. What file? She tapped her drawer, the one your husband tried to open years ago when he wanted me to represent him during a merger. My stomach flipped. He tried to hire you. She nodded, and I refused. I don't work with men who think loyalty can be bought in bulk. Dana slid a folder across the table, her nails tapping lightly. Inside is everything he submitted, including the original acquisition contract with the Alden Group. My breath caught because I knew that contract. I'd co-signed it. I'd negotiated half of it. Clause 14C, she said. It's an IP and equity clause, written by you, ignored by him. I opened the file. My handwriting stared back at me and scanned ink. Clean, sharp, unmistakably mine. So I still technically own what 5%, I whispered. Dana smiled with slow satisfaction. Try 12. My pulse hammered in my ears. 12% of a company now valued at over $200 million. Logan had always said the payout from the acquisition had rolled into joint assets. He'd said it so often, so confidently, that I had almost started to believe him. Not anymore. Dana leaned back. If he tries to play hardball, you remind him you built the field. For the first time in months, maybe years, something warm flickered in my chest. Not hope exactly, something sharper. Recognition. I walked out of Dana's office with a USB drive, a legal pad full of next steps, and a sense of velocity I hadn't felt in a decade. Next stop, the bank. Karen, the private client manager, had the kind of calm Midwestern voice that makes bad news sound like weather forecasts. She printed 3 years of statements, highlighted irregularities, and occasionally muttered, "Oh, honey," no under her breath. When she saw the string of wellness coaching fees tied to Sloane, she clicked her tongue. Money doesn't lie, she said. People usually do. By the time I left, I had new accounts under my maiden name and digital copies of every transaction Logan would pray no one ever saw. The world looked different when I stepped back onto the sidewalk, different in the way a room shifts when a secret is finally spoken aloud. Around 5, I entered the Carril Hotel with a small overnight bag. The clerk greeted me with soft, lighting warmer smiles and the exact level of anonymity I needed. Welcome back, Miss Lane, he said. Miss Lane, not Mrs. Mercer. The suite was small, but bright pale wood floors, a deep gray reading chair by the window, and a corner table perfect for paperwork. I placed my parents' photo on it, then my grandmother's emerald ring beside it. The first thing I did was sit on the chair, letting my body sink into it. I exhaled fully for the first time all day. That night, I slept without fear. The following morning, I met Eli and Nia, the discreet relocation team Dana trusted. They weren't what I expected. Eli looked like a retired linebacker who'd found enlightenment through bubble wrap. Nia was quiet, sharp-eyed, her braids swinging like a metronome of precision. They studied the floor plan I'd drawn on the back of hotel stationery. "You've done half the work for us," Nia said. "This is cleaner than most corporate extraction." The word felt dramatic, but so was my life. We agreed on signals, simple coded. Groceries delivered =, we're in. Dinner ready =, extraction complete. Logan would be at the gym Thursday morning, a creature of habit predictable as sunrise. "We'll be in and out before he finishes his cardio," Eli said. I believed him. Everything was in motion now, every wheel turning exactly when I needed it to. The fear didn't disappear. It tightened and loosened like a tide, but it no longer controlled the shoreline. I felt it in my body, but I wasn't drowning under it. By the end of day 2, I had a lawyer, a financial shield, a relocation team, a secure room at the Carril, and a stack of evidence higher than my moral tolerance. Logan still thought I was sulking. He still thought I'd come crawling back. He had no idea I was already gone. He had no idea the guest room he'd shoved me into had become my command center. My war room. My beginning. Thursday dawned gray and cold, the kind of Manhattan morning where the sky looks like brushed steel. I woke in the Carril suite before my alarm heart beat steady, the room still smelling faintly of peppermint tea and fresh sheets. The city hummed below traffic building voices rising. Life starting without apology. For once, my life was starting too. I pulled on a slate blue sweater, tied my hair back, and stood at the window. Logan would just be waking up. He'd stretch, check his phone, review his schedule. He'd probably wonder why I hadn't sent a reminder about his meeting with the Alden Group's CFO. He relied on me for those things, quiet tasks he'd rewritten as wife duties. It had never occurred to him that those duties required actual intelligence. At 7:04 a.m., my burner phone buzzed. Groceries delivered. The operation had begun. I took the elevator to the lobby, the marble floors reflecting soft golden light. Eli was already there, leaning casually against a column, like he was waiting for a cab. The Andersons' Flowers van was parked out front. White script, pastel decal. Innocent as hell. Nia peered at my side without a sound. "We're on schedule," she said. "You go in 5 minutes behind us." Normal elevator, normal pace. My stomach tightened, not fear, but readiness. When the time came, I walked into my own building like a guest. Thomas, the night doorman, stood at his post finishing his shift. His eyes flicked to the flower van, then to me. "You doing all right, Miss Lane?" he asked, voice low. For the first time in a long time, I didn't lie. "Yes," I said. "I think I finally am." He nodded once. "Good. About time." Upstairs, the penthouse was silent. Logan's absence echoed through the space. The air smelled faintly of cedar polish and whatever expensive cologne he'd started wearing to impress Sloane. I stood there for a beat, taking in the quiet. Then I moved. The guest room was exactly as I'd left it. Papers, organized drawers, half-packed the notepad on my grandmother's desk, filled with notes-list strategies. I tucked the notepad into my bag. It held my mind on paper. My future, too. 2 soft knocks. Eli cracked the door. "We're ready." I followed them into the main hallway. The movers entered like a synchronized team, calm, efficient, barely speaking, packing only what was mine and nothing more. Every motion was deliberate. Tape-whispered boxes thumped, softly drawers opened with quiet clicks. In the primary bedroom, the walk-in closet felt like a museum exhibit of a life I no longer lived. My side was nearly empty clothes I actually liked, shoes I actually wore. Logan's side, untouched, full of suits he bought to look more important. Nia handed me a garment bag. "Sentimental items should be packed by you," she said. "Less risk of misplacing something you'll regret later." I nodded and unhooked my emerald dress, the one Logan hated. Too loud, he always muttered. Too needy. Funny how his definition of needy just meant confident. Next came the ring. My grandmother's emerald gleamed inside the safe exactly where I suspected it had been all along. Logan once pretended it must have been misplaced in the move, but I found it tucked behind old portfolio documents he'd never bothered to file. I slipped the ring onto my finger. It felt like slipping into my own skin again. A sharp beep from the kitchen signaled the wine cellar door opening. Eli was cataloging each bottle, photographing labels. "This collection's worth more than my truck," he muttered. "And your husband shipped a case to a Tribeca apartment. That's either a client he really cares about or a side piece with refined taste. Tribeca." My chest tightened. I didn't need to connect the dots. Evidence. Everything was evidence now. Back in the foyer, Miguel, the lobby porter, arrived on cue, pretending to deliver a package. He waited until the elevator doors closed, then slipped me a small, black notebook. "Been keeping this for months," he whispered. "Thought you might need it." Inside, neat handwriting recorded dates, times, observations. Left with blonde woman, returned 3:27 a.m. Clothes wrinkled so at emergency strategy session, delivered flowers, addressed to Reeves. I closed the notebook with a trembling exhale. "Thank you," I said quietly. Miguel shrugged. "You're the only one in that apartment who ever asked how my mom's doing. Felt right to return the kindness." Not kindness. Pattern recognition. People remember who sees them. At 10:14 a.m., my phone vibrated. Window box herbs collected. It was Nia's shorthand for the terrace plants, my basil mint and stubborn tomato vine. Logan always mocked them. "We have a penthouse, not a farm." But Nia packed them with the same care as everything else. She appeared beside me. "We're ahead of schedule. Last load in 20. I nodded. The air in the penthouse felt lighter, roomier. Without my things, I could see every ghost of resentment in the walls. At 10:43, the final message arrived. Dinner ready, extraction complete. Eli approached, wiping his palms on his pants. "Everything's secure. Storage unit is climate controlled. Access under your maiden name." "And the furniture?" I asked. He grinned. "We left it all. Let him trip over his own empire." I almost laughed. We walked through the apartment one last time. Every space looked staged, not lived in. A set built for a performance I'd finally walked out of. In Logan's study, sunlight cut through the blinds in narrow, cold stripes. I placed the divorce papers on his desk, fanned out so he couldn't miss the signatures. On the right, I set the forensic accounting summary, 3 pages, concise, devastating. On top, I placed a small, cream-colored card. Lesson learned. Not dramatic, not vindictive, just factual. I pulled out my phone and took one picture of the desk-proof timestamp closure. When I reached the elevator, Thomas pinged me from downstairs. He's on his way up early. My pulse spiked. Not fear. Timing. Nia grabbed my elbow. "Service elevator, now." We slipped behind a cleaning cart down the service corridor through the secondary lift that opened into the adjoining building's garage. The flower van sat waiting, back doors open. Eli waved me inside. "We'll drop you a block from the Carril," he said. "Cleaner that way." I climbed in, heart racing, not from panic, but from the adrenaline of escape. As the van pulled away from the loading dock, I glanced through the small rear window. The penthouse windows flashed in the sun. Somewhere up there, Logan was walking into an empty closet, an empty life, a full envelope. The city swallowed the building behind us. My breathing slowed, my shoulders loosened. Something in my chest unclenched that had been tight for years. By the time the van stopped, I felt light. Not weightless, not healed, but unburdened. I walked back into the Carril on my own 2 feet, no bag full of his expectations dragging behind me. The clerk greeted me with the same gentle smile. "Welcome back, Miss Lane." And for the first time, the name didn't feel borrowed. It felt returned. I took the elevator to my suite, opened the door, and stood in the quiet. I wasn't hiding. I wasn't running. I was rebuilding. One room at a time. One choice at a time. One version of myself at a time. And I wasn't done yet. Not even close. For 3 days, I waited for the storm. I knew Logan well enough to understand the sequence, confusion, denial, rage. Then punishment. He'd never let a power shift happen quietly. Men like him believe stability is their birthright, and any disruption is a personal attack. So I braced myself. It didn't take long. The first call came at 6:13 a.m., Saturday morning. I was sitting by the window of the Carril suite. Coffee in hand, watching runners stream through Central Park. Logan's name lit my phone in bright, arrogant letters. I didn't answer. He called again, and again, 11 times in total. When he finally gave up, he switched to text. "Avery, we need to talk. Come home. You can't be serious. Where are my accounts? Who authorized that?" "You're being reckless." I sipped my coffee, letting the messages stack up like a deck of bad cards. I didn't reply. At 7:02, a longer text arrived. "You walked out with property that belongs to both of us. Return the items, or I'll involve my attorneys." I smiled without humor. Good? I wanted him to involve them. Power leaves fingerprints, and Logan was stamping fear all over every word. By noon, the tone shifted from demands to faux concern. "This isn't you. You're not thinking clearly. We can fix this. Just come home so we can talk like adults." like adults. Funny coming from the man who threw a tantrum because I didn't apologize on his schedule. I muted the thread. At 1:45 p.m., Dana called. He's panicking, she said, flipping through papers on her end. I could hear the rustle. His attorney reached out, not him. That means he's scared to say the wrong thing on record. What did the attorney want? A meeting with you present. Tomorrow morning. I snorted. Why to negotiate my return like a runaway intern? No, she said. To get ahead of the board. My hand stilled. They know they don't have details yet, but Melissa, the CFO, has been discreetly raising questions. Consulting fees, misallocated budgets, Sloane's travel expenses coded as strategic wellness. Logan can't hide it much longer. A jolt of adrenaline shot through me sharp as lightning. Proof, movement, consequences. So what do? I asked. We stay quiet, Dana said. Let them come to us. Let him sweat. I exhaled slowly. Strategy, patience. 2 things Logan had never mastered, but silence had side effects. Around dusk, someone knocked on my suite door. Hesitant, unsteady. When I opened it, I froze. Sloane Reeves stood there, makeup smudged, hair limp, mascara streaks down her cheeks like war paint gone wrong. She clutched a designer bag to her chest, the way children clutch stuffed animals after nightmares. Avery, she whispered, voice shaking. Please. I didn't know where else to go. It was the first time she'd ever said my name without a smirk. I stepped aside. She slipped in like a shadow escaping the sun. She paced to the window but didn't sit. Her hands trembled violently. Logan, he cut off my accounts, she said. Every card, every deposit. The apartment in Tribeca, the lease is in his name. He threatened to take me to court for misappropriation. I don't even know what that means. Oh, I thought. It means he's scared. And when he's scared, he becomes cruel. What do you want from me, Sloane? I asked quietly. She turned toward me, eyes wide and red. He said you did this, that you're vengeful, that you told the board lies to ruin him. I almost laughed. Logan's greatest weakness was assuming the world believed his version of events. I didn't lie, I said, and I didn't need revenge. I needed truth. She swallowed hard. He told me he was leaving you. In January. He even showed me a house in Connecticut, said we'd move after the quarter closed. I stared at her, studying the desperation in her expression, the panic, the betrayal. She really believed him. He lied to you, I said. Just like he lied to me. Just like he lied to half the people he's ever worked with. Her breath caught. She sank onto the edge of the bed like her knees had given out. I thought I was special, she whispered. You're not the first woman to think that, I said gently. Silence hung between us, awkward, heavy, surprisingly human. Then she asked, do you hate me? No, I said honestly. I resented you, but hate that gives him too much credit. We were both pawns, just different floors on the same chessboard. She let out a small, broken sound that might have been a laugh. He told me I ruined him. No, I said calmly. He ruined himself. Her lip trembled. What do I do now? I reached into my bag, pulled out Dana's card, and handed it to her. Call her, I said. Tell her everything. She'll help you. Sloane stared at the card like it was a life raft. Why are you helping me? Because this isn't kindness, I said. It's closure. She cried harder after that quiet, shaky sobs muffled into her hands. I let her. When she finally stood to leave, she paused in the doorway. For what it's worth, she said hoarsely, he's terrified of you. Good, I replied. He should be. When the door clicked shut behind her, I sat in the silence and pressed my palms together. One complication down, many left to go. But the cracks in Logan's armor were showing, and once cracks start, they don't stop. Not until everything collapses. Sunday morning arrived, sharp and cold sunlight slicing through the curtains of my Curiel suite like a reminder that time was moving whether I was ready or not. I sat at the desk reviewing Dana's notes when my burner phone buzzed. Unknown number. 3 words. We need to talk. EM Eleanor Mercer. Logan's mother. My stomach tightened. Eleanor was a woman, carved from marble quiet. Immaculate meticulous. She'd always treated me politely distantly, like I was the decorative frame around her son's portrait. 10 minutes later, her knock came 2 taps, firm, unmistakably hers. I opened the door. She stood in a camel coat, pearls perfectly spaced along her throat, her expression unreadable. Her eyes didn't sweep the room. They assessed it, the way she probably assessed everything in her life. Cataloging value, context, potential damage. May I come in? She asked. I stepped aside. She entered without hesitation, placing her handbag on the chair as if claiming territory. "I won't waste your time," she said, removing her gloves one finger at a time. "Logan is unraveling." I sat across from her, folding my hands in my lap. That tends to happen when lies run out. A ghost of a smile flickered at the corner of her mouth. "You sound like Dana Morales. Dana's good at what she does." "So are you," Eleanor said softly. "You were always the sharpest one in the room." Logan resented that. I blinked. That was not the direction I expected. She reached into her handbag and pulled out a thick manila folder. The edges were worn, corners bent. She slid it toward me. "What is this?" I asked. "Insurance," she said. "From before you. Things he never told you. Because he never tells anyone the whole truth." I opened the folder. Divorce filings, his first marriage, the one he claimed was annulled. An HR complaint labeled inappropriate boundary violations, a settlement agreement with a consultant, a confidentiality clause with a payout that made my jaw tighten. My breath caught. "He said that was all exaggerated," Eleanor murmured. "He told me the women misunderstood him. But I've lived long enough to know a pattern when I see one." She leaned back, hands folded neatly. "You're the first woman who didn't mistake his ambition for devotion," she said. "And the only one who ever pushed back." I exhaled shakily. "Why give this to me now?" "Because you're the one who can stop him," she said. "And because I'm tired of cleaning up his messes." There was no warmth in her voice, just fatigue. The exhaustion of a mother who'd enabled too much for too long. She stood smoothing her coat. "Whatever comes next, Avery, don't hesitate. Men like my son count on hesitation." Then she paused at the door. "I'm sorry," she said quietly, "for what he did and for what I let him become." When she left, the suite felt heavier. The folder seemed to radiate a truth I'd refused to consider. Logan hadn't changed. He'd always been this man. I'd just grown too loyal to notice. The next knock arrived barely an hour later. This one wasn't timid. It was sharp, assertive. Dana walked in without waiting to be invited, her hair in a tight bun. Glasses perched on her head, the aura of a woman who'd already drafted 3 strategies before breakfast. "Emergency update," she said, dropping a stack of papers on the table. "You ready?" "Yes." "The board moved the meeting up. Tomorrow, early. They want documentation." She flipped through the stack. "Financial irregularities," she said. "Consulting fees linked to Sloan. Company funds used at the St. Regis Carril and the Tribeca address." She tapped a highlighted line. "And here, this is big inventory transfers from the wine collection coded as executive gifts. But the destination doesn't match corporate records." My pulse thudded. The sommelier's comment from days earlier echoed in my mind. "They're circling him," Dana said, "and he knows it." She slid a sealed envelope across the table. "Inside is our formal statement. Your statement. You won't need to say it yourself. Your signature is enough." I stared at the envelope. She leaned closer. "Avery, listen to me. Everything you've done so far has been clean, controlled. Don't waver now." I nodded. "I'm not wavering." "Good," she said. "Because tomorrow he'll try everything. He'll deny. He'll blame. He'll cry maybe. He'll throw Sloan under the bus. Or you. Or both." I swallowed hard. Dana softened, "Not much, but enough. Just remember, you're not the one on trial. He is." She left me with the envelope and a mind buzzing like exposed wiring. That night, the city outside my window flickered with restless energy taxi lights. Street lamps, distant sirens. The pulse of a place that never sleeps and never lets you forget who you are. I sat in the gray reading chair with the envelope in my lap. My fingers traced the seam. Inside those pages lived the next chapter of my life. And the end of his control. I thought of all the versions of myself I had been. The young wife who compromised, the supportive partner who swallowed insults, the silent woman who ironed shirts at dawn so he could look polished while he erased me. And then I thought of the version sitting here now. Steady, clear, done. At 11:26 p.m., my burner phone buzzed again. "Logan." A voicemail. I pressed play. His voice cracked. "Avery, please call me. This is getting out of hand. You've made your point. Whatever this is. Whatever you think you're doing. Just stop, please. I can't." The message cut off. He sounded scared, truly scared. And for a split second, something inside me wavered. A ghost of an old instinct. To comfort, to soothe, to fix. But then I remembered the pinch under the dinner table. The humiliation. The lies. The way he spoke about me like I was a disobedient employee. The hand on Sloane's back. The whispered good girl. I deleted the voicemail. The storm was coming. But But I wasn't bracing anymore. I was ready. When I finally crawled into bed, I didn't pray for courage. I already had it. I prayed for clarity. Because tomorrow, the real war would begin. Monday didn't creep in. It crashed. By 7 a.m., the sky over Manhattan was a low, hard gray. I stood at the Kirill window in my emerald dress, the one Logan called too loud, and watched the clouds stack over the Alden building. If you're going to burn it down, Dana had said the night before, you might as well wear something you actually like. My phone buzzed now. Dana. Car's downstairs, she said. You ready? I stared at my reflection in the glass green dress. Simple makeup, hair smooth, but not stiff, my grandmother's, ring catching the muted light. I look like a woman attending a hearing, not a breakdown. I'm ready, I said. The ride downtown was quiet. Dana skimmed notes on her tablet. I watched the city flicker past, coffee carts steaming on corners. People in dark coats power walking like their lives depended on it. Once Logan and I used to share that energy, that hunger. Now I was headed to watch him choke on it. The Alden Group's headquarters rose out of the street like a mirrored threat. Inside, the air smelled like polished stone and money. A receptionist with hair too perfect to move directed us to the 28th floor. Emergency executive session, she said, eyes flicking between me and Dana like she knew more than she let on. The boardroom was already half full. Men in tailored suits, 2 women with legal pads, a row of assistants along the wall, pretending not to listen. The long glass table gleamed under recessed lighting, reflecting faces that had once toasted Logan with champagne. Now they looked tense, irritated, hungry for a different kind of show. Richard Alden stood at the far end, hands resting lightly on the back of a chair. Silver hair, neutral expression. He glanced up when we walked in. Avery, he said. No, Mrs. Mercer. Just my name like a fact. Richard. I replied, my voice steadier than I felt. Dana moved ahead, greeting in-house counsel, sliding into a seat with the ease of someone born for rooms like this. I took the chair beside her, not at the table, but not at the wall either. Not inside, not outside, exactly where I needed to be. Logan arrived 3 minutes later. You could tell by the sound. His shoes always struck the floor, with that particular rhythm measured, confident, rehearsed. He walked in wearing his navy power suit, the one cut to make him look broader, the knot of his tie so precise it might as well have been printed. Beside him, Sloane. She looked smaller than I remembered. Makeup heavier, posture, tighter dress, a little too bright for a crisis meeting. Her eyes kept darting toward him, like she was trying to read a script that had suddenly been rewritten. Logan scanned the room, saw me, and paused. For a second, just one, the boardroom version of him glitched. The charming mask slipped a fraction. His eyes hardened, then quickly smoothed. Avery, he said as if he'd bumped into me at a coffee shop. I didn't realize you'd be here. I tilted my head, considering I co-signed the original acquisition contract. It would have been rude not to invite me. Several board members' eyes sharpened at that. One of them, a woman in a charcoal blazer, I recognized as Melissa, the CFO, hid a small, satisfied smile behind her hand. Richard cleared his throat. Let's begin. Everyone took their seats. Logan positioned himself near the head of the table, just to the right of Richard. Sloane sat 2 chairs down, hands clasped so tightly her knuckles blanched. In light of recent concerns, Richard said, Voice, even this board has convened an emergency session to clarify certain financial discrepancies. Logan, you requested an opportunity to address them directly. We're here to listen. Logan nodded, sliding into performance mode. I appreciate that, Richard. There's clearly been some, misunderstanding. I want to clear the air. Misunderstanding. The word tasted like spoiled sugar. Dana's pen clicked once. A warning. An in-house attorney projected spreadsheets on the wall numbers, dates charts. Consulting fees, travel expenses, wine acquisition codes. It all looked clinical, almost boring. Then Melissa leaned forward. These line items, she said, tapping a dossier, are coded as strategic consulting services. They total just under 8 figures over 3 years. Most of them link back to one individual. Her gaze could have sliced glass. Sloane Reeves. The room went quiet. Logan's smile didn't falter. Yes. Sloane's been invaluable. Her work has been instrumental in developing our brand positioning and leadership culture. Can you articulate those contributions, Melissa asked, specifically? For the record. For the record, Logan repeated, buying time. She's been support on multiple deals, client engagements. Internal leadership programming. Where are the deliverables? Melissa cut in. Logan stiffened. "Excuse me, reports, frameworks, documentation," she said. "We've reviewed the shared drives. There's very little from Miss Reeves that justifies the volume of payments. Most of what we found belonged to your internal teams. Or to Avery Lane." Heads turned toward me. I felt their eyes but didn't flinch. "Miss Lane's materials formed the backbone of our methodology for years," Melissa continued. "Yet her name disappears from credits around the same time Miss Reeves's fees spike. Interesting timing." Logan's jaw tightened. "Are we really interrogating my hiring decisions? I'm the CEO. I'm allowed to seek external expertise." Richard's voice turned cooler. "You are Logan. You are not allowed to misallocate corporate funds or use company accounts to fund personal arrangements." Sloane's head snapped toward him. "That's not Miss Reeves," Richard cut in. "You'll have a chance to clarify. For now, please let us finish." Color rose in her cheeks. She sank back into her chair. Dana eased a folder a fraction closer to me, just enough for Logan to notice. His gaze flicked to it, then back to my face. "Is that why you're here?" he asked coldly. "To play auditor." "No," I said, calm. "I'm here as a co-founder whose work and equity seem to have disappeared, along with a not insignificant amount of company money." Soft murmurs rippled around the table. One of the older board members, Benson, cleared his throat. "Co-founder. I was under the impression Avery stepped back before the acquisition." "I did," I said. "After the paperwork. After I negotiated Clause 14C of the IP agreement, the one that assigns 12% of the intellectual property value to the originating architect of the methodology. I let that sit. I wrote that clause," I added quietly. Logan signed it. Benson's eyes widened. Melissa's lips twitched. Richard's gaze sharpened. "Logan?" he asked softly. "Is that accurate?" Logan laughed a brittle sound. "Avery drafted some language early on, sure," he said. "But she was never involved at the level we're discussing. She's exaggerating. She's angry Dana spoke for the first time. Clause 14C." She said, voice like a scalpel, is valid, signed, and enforceable. "I have copies of the original filings. So does Alden's legal department. We can circulate them if there's any confusion." The in-house counsel shifted. "We've confirmed its existence," he admitted. Logan turned on him. "And you didn't flag this for me." "It was flagged," the attorney replied. "You said you'd handle it with your wife." The back of my neck prickled. Handle it with your wife. Of course he had. Richard leaned back, studying Logan, like he'd just discovered a crack in an expensive vase. "This is beginning to look less like misunderstanding," he said quietly, "and more like misrepresentation." Logan's composure slipped. "This is ridiculous," he snapped. "Avery is punishing me because our marriage is going through a rough patch. She's weaponizing business to get even. We're really going to let a domestic issue derail a company of this size." Heads turned toward me again. For a heartbeat, the air felt thin, like the room had shrunk. I could see exactly what he was trying to do, shrink me back into the role he'd written, the emotional wife, whose words could be dismissed with a shrug. I thought of every time I'd swallowed my opinion to protect his image every dinner, where I'd laughed on cue, so he wouldn't accuse me of hurting the mood. Not today. My pulse thudded in my ears. This was his move. Turn me into the irrational wife frame. Everything as hysteria. I let the silence stretch. One breath. Two. Then I stood. If this were just about our marriage, I said I would have left quietly, taken my things, started over. I rested my hands on the back of my chair. But Logan didn't just betray me. He betrayed this company. He used its funds to finance an affair, rewrote its history to erase my work, and lied to every person at this table. That isn't domestic. That's corporate. "And the proof?" Benson asked. Dana slid the folder fully onto the glass. "Right here," she said. Itemized, dated, corroborated by external records and internal witnesses, including building staff, hospitality partners, and a very thorough sommelier. Someone coughed to hide a laugh. Tension cracked just a hair. Richard exhaled slowly. "Then I suggest," he said, "that we all take a careful look." Logan stared at me across the table, eyes burning. "This is war, Avery," he said under his breath. I met his gaze and didn't blink. "No," I whispered back. "This is accounting." And for the first time in his life, he didn't control the numbers. The boardroom transformed once the folder opened. It wasn't loud, it wasn't chaotic, it was worse quiet. Methodical. The kind of silence that means everyone is switching sides in real time, recalibrating loyalties like a compass, jerked toward true north. Richard nodded to in-house counsel. The man adjusted his glasses and began reading. Transaction 48B, categorized under strategic hospitality, corresponds to a 2-night stay at the St. Regis for Miss Reeves. Company paid. No documented purpose. Transaction 52C. That was a business retreat, Logan cut in sharply. We were outlining leadership frameworks. At the St. Regis, Melissa asked, her voice all acid. In a suite with a jacuzzi and rose petal packages, Sloane's cheeks flushed a painful shade of crimson. We needed privacy, Logan snapped. For a jacuzzi, Melissa replied. A few people coughed. Others looked down to hide smiles. Logan's jaw clenched so hard I heard a faint click. The attorney continued. Travel reimbursements for Miss Reeves include flights to Miami, Napa Valley, and Vancouver, none of which align with company travel logs for those dates, all charged to the executive development budget. Logan's nostrils flared. Those trips were exploratory potential client expansions. With no client meetings, Melissa asked, no proposals, no follow-up reports. Logan's silence answered for him. Then the attorney flipped a page. And finally, the seller inventory discrepancy. An entire case of Domaine Le Fleuve Montrachet moved off-site, allocated under client gifting. We cross-referenced shipping logs. The case was delivered to a residential address in Tribeca. The shift in the room was instant. Heads turned toward Sloane. She looked stunned, blindsided, like she hadn't known this part. Her lips parted, but no sound came out. Richard folded his hands, voice calm but sharp. Logan, do you want to explain why corporate wine was delivered to your, consultant's residence? She was hosting a networking event. Logan stammered. I asked her to. It was strategic. It was a birthday party, Sloane whispered. Every head swiveled to her. Her face had gone pale. It wasn't networking. It was my birthday. You said it was a secret surprise. You told me. You said the company approved it. The air cracked like ice. Even I felt my breath hitch. Logan stared at her furious, not because she revealed the truth, but because she ruined his script. Sloane, stop talking, he hissed. No, she whispered, voice trembling. You told me everything was above board. I didn't know. You didn't need to know, he snapped. That was his mistake. His fatal one. Sloane recoiled slightly, her eyes filling with a hurt she couldn't hide. For the first time since I met her, she looked small. Human. Defenseless. Richard exhaled long and slow. I think we understand the pattern, he said. This goes far beyond questionable spending. Dana leaned forward. It goes to intent. And like a cue from a stage play, the in-house attorney clicked a remote. A new document appeared on the screen. I'd like to turn your attention to the audio file provided anonymously last week, he said. Anonymous. Not quite. I recognized the background hum in the recording, the lobby bar, at the Halcyon Hotel where Logan liked to celebrate wins. The audio crackled for a second, then Logan's voice filled the room. Nobody ever needs to know she started the company with me. My handwriting on the contract flashed through my mind. Dana's smirk beside me said she already knew how devastating this would be. The recording continued. She still thinks the equity split was fair. God, she'll never question it. She's brilliant, but too sentimental to fight me. A heavy, dense silence followed. A silence so thick it felt alive. Then Richard spoke, voice low. That, he said, is deeply concerning. Logan lurched forward. That was taken out of context. I was venting to a friend. It wasn't literal. Logan, Melissa said evenly, you said no one ever needs to know. That's, he tried again, voice rising, that's locker room talk. Hyperbole. It has nothing to do with the board's business. And yet, here we are, Dana replied. Logan slammed his palm on the glass table. This is a witch hunt. Witches aren't real, I said quietly, but paper trails are. He spun toward me, eyes burning. Avery, stop. This is insane. You're humiliated. I get it. But dragging my career into our marital issues, no, I said. You dragged our marriage into your corruption. He opened his mouth again, but Richard raised a hand. Let's continue. The attorney flipped another page. There is also a pattern of performance review irregularities affecting employees who questioned the legitimacy of Miss Reeves's work. Terminations without proper documentation. Severance packages negotiated under unusual circumstances. The room thickened with unease. One board member whispered something to another. A ripple of discomfort passed like a slow wave. Logan's composure frayed further. Are we seriously entertaining this? I've carried this company for years. I've made every major deal happen. I've built relationships you couldn't buy with all the equity in this room. And yet Melissa interrupted the numbers, suggest you were using the company as your personal bank. His face reddened. Sweat formed at his temples. This is a smear campaign, he barked. Someone's feeding you this bullshit. He looked at me. Really looked. I could see the panic behind the rage now pulsing like a raw nerve. You did this, he said. You coordinated this. You're trying to destroy me. I didn't blink. No, I said softly. I just stopped covering for you. That landed. Hard. His breath hitched. He searched my face for something, shame, fear, weakness, but found none. Melissa cleared her throat. Logan, we still haven't addressed the most pressing question. Who approved these expenditures? I did, he snapped. Because I'm the CEO. It's my responsibility. Dana folded her hands. Then the liability is yours too. Another slide lit up board bylaws. Dana's voice was cold steel. According to Section 7.3, any misuse of corporate funds exceeding $5 million triggers an automatic review of executive status. Section 7.4 extends that to potential suspension. Logan stared at her like she was speaking another language. You're not the board, he said weakly. You can't. They can, she said. They will. Richard looked at him with a calm that terrified even me. Logan, he said, we have always valued your contributions, but these actions, if verified, represent serious breaches of trust. Logan shook his head. You can't do this. You rely on me. I run the show. No, Richard said quietly, the show runs with or without you. Logan's hands tightened on the table's edge. His voice dropped lower, darker. Avery, he said, you don't know what you're doing. You're letting them use you. I stepped forward, finally entering the center of the room. No, I said. I'm letting the truth speak. His eyes glinted with desperation. Please, he whispered. We can fix this. We can fix us. I studied him for a long moment. A room full of witnesses, a lifetime of erasure hanging between us. You didn't see me, I said quietly. Not for years. And now you're angry I'm visible. Something in him broke. He reached for the back of a chair like he needed to hold on to something solid. You're ending my career, he said, voice cracking. You ended it, I replied. I'm just turning on the lights. Dana rose. Miss Lane, if you'd like to submit your statement. I nodded. My legs carried me forward without hesitation. I set the signed statement on the table, 3 pages black, Kinotic ink meticulous formatting. Evidence, closure, freedom. The board members leaned in, each one looking more relieved than shocked. Richard tapped the table once. We'll need a moment to confer. Everyone except board personnel, please step out. Logan's eyes widened. He looked at me like I had stabbed him. This isn't over, he whispered sharply. You're still my wife. I stared at him. Not with anger, not with triumph, with a final quiet truth, not for long. Sloane let out a small broken sound as she stood. She looked at me, eyes shining with something like apology, or recognition. I didn't know which. Maybe both. Dana gently placed a hand on my back. Come on, she murmured. Let them deliberate. We stepped out into the hallway. The glass door closed behind us with a soft click that felt heavier than any slam. I exhaled slow and steady. The empire he built was now under review. And for the first time, the board wasn't looking at him for answers. They were looking at what he'd tried to bury. Me. The hallway outside the boardroom was 2 bright fluorescent lights, buzzing faintly polished floors, reflecting every nervous step I took. Dana stood beside me, steady as a lighthouse, scrolling through emails on her phone, like this was just another Monday. It won't take long, she said without looking up. Board decisions rarely do when the evidence is this bad. I nodded, but my pulse thudded in my throat. The muffled voices inside the room rose, then dropped again. Footsteps shuffled, a chair scraped. Every sound felt like it vibrated directly against my ribs. Then the door opened. Melissa stepped out first, her expression the kind of neutral that was never actually neutral. She gave a small nod to Dana, almost a signal. Richard followed her, adjusting his glasses. The rest of the board filed out behind him. And then Logan appeared. He looked smaller, like someone had wrung the air out of him. His tie was crooked now, his hair slightly mussed, his expression somewhere between fury and disbelief. Avery, he said, voice hoarse. Dana placed a hand on my elbow, subtle grounding. Richard cleared his throat. We're adjourning this phase of the meeting. The board will issue formal documentation soon. What does that mean? Logan snapped. It means Melissa said you're on administrative leave effective immediately. Logan's breath hitched. You can't bench me. I'm the CEO. You were, Melissa said, past tense. He lunged toward the boardroom door. Richard stepped calmly between him and the threshold. Logan, he said this isn't personal. Yes, it is, Logan exploded. This is her, he jabbed a finger toward me, voice cracking. She's orchestrating this. You're all blind if you don't see it. No one orchestrated anything, Richard said with quiet authority. The numbers speak for themselves. Logan let out a rough, broken laugh. The numbers, you're trusting numbers over me, after everything I've done for this company for you. This meeting is concluded, Richard said firmly. Please gather your personal items. Security will escort you if necessary. Logan froze. Security. The word hit him like a slap. You're humiliating me, he whispered. For a moment, I almost felt the ghost of the woman. I used to be the one who tried to soften every blow, manage every emotion, make everything easier for him. But that woman was gone, burned out, replaced by someone who finally understood her worth. When Logan's eyes locked onto mine, they were frantic, searching for a lifeline. Say something, he begged. Avery, please, stop this. I held his gaze steadily. This isn't humiliation, I said. This is accountability. The words sliced clean. His mouth opened, opened again. His hands trembled at his sides. Sloane stood behind him near the wall, her face pale mascara smudged, watching the downfall of the man she thought would save her. For a brief second, their eyes met. Logan glared at her like she owed him something. She looked away. Dana stepped closer. We should go. But Logan moved fast. He grabbed my wrist. Not hard, not painful, but possessive. His voice dropped low so only I could hear. If you walk away now, everything we built will collapse. I gently but firmly pulled my hand back. It already did. His face contorted grief, anger, disbelief mixing like oil and water. You're ruining me. No, I said. You ruined yourself. Richard cleared his throat. Is there a problem? Logan straightened, instantly masking everything behind the cold CEO face he'd worn for years. No problem, he said through clenched teeth. None at all. Security approached discreetly, 2 men in navy blazers. They didn't touch him. They didn't need to. Their presence alone shifted the entire dynamic. Logan shot one last look at me, a look full of betrayal as if I'd just committed an unforgivable crime by refusing to be small anymore. Then he walked away. Stiff, mechanical, defeated. Sloane went after him. Logan, wait. He didn't. The elevator doors closed behind them with a hollow metallic thud, a sound that felt like an ending. In the quiet that followed, Melissa approached me. Her expression softened in a way I'd never seen. You saved us a disaster, she said quietly. More than you know. I exhaled shakily. I didn't do it for the board, I know, she replied. But it doesn't make it less true. Richard joined her. When the dust settles, the board may need your expertise. On a consulting basis. I almost laughed. You want to hire me, I want to hire someone who's been doing the real work for years, he said. Think about it. Dana stepped between us. She will. Richard nodded and walked off, gathering the rest of the board for final signatures. Melissa lingered. By the way, she said, dropping her voice, I always knew something was off. You don't get that much consulting? Without any consulting materials. Men like Logan forget numbers don't love them the way women do. I blinked. The sentence cut deep in ways I didn't expect. Good luck, Avery, she added, truly. Then she followed that others. When the hallway emptied, Dana turned toward me with a proud, almost maternal expression I'd never seen from her. You held your ground, she said. Most people would have folded halfway through. I didn't feel strong, I admitted. You don't have to feel strong to be strong, she said. You just have to choose the truth over the excuse. She squeezed my shoulder. Now comes the next part. What part? The fallout. We took the elevator down to the ground floor. As soon as the doors opened, I saw him. Logan. He was standing near the security desk, leaning heavily on one arm. His tie was loose, his hair disheveled, his expression wild. The board's decision had hit him like a physical blow. Sloane hovered beside him, her arms wrapped tightly around herself. Eyes shining with tears she hadn't let fall yet. The moment he saw me, he pushed away from the desk. Avery, he rasped. We're not finished. Dana stepped forward. Actually, you are. Logan ignored her. He walked straight up to me, stopping inches away. You think you won, he said, voice trembling with rage. You think taking my job, my status, my board is a victory. I held his gaze without flinching. I think telling the truth is. He leaned closer. You think the board cares about you. You think they'll keep you around after this. You're disposable. The word rolled off me like water. I was disposable to you, I said, not to myself. He let out a harsh laugh. You can't survive without me. I already am. You're nothing without the Mercer name. I'm Lane, I corrected. And I'm just fine. His face twisted. You ruined me. Again. That word. Ruined. A security guard shifted subtly closer. Dana stepped between us. Logan stepped back. Now. For a moment, I thought he might hit something. The wall, a chair, himself. But instead, he just deflated. Like the fight drained out of him all at once, leaving only a hollow shell of a man who'd finally run out of people to blame. He turned to Sloane. "Are you coming?" he barked. She didn't move. Her voice was small but steady. "I need to talk to my attorney." His jaw dropped. "Your attorney? Are you serious?" She nodded. "You lied to me." For a second, one devastating second, Logan looked genuinely wounded. Then he scoffed. "Oh, please, everyone lies." "Not like this," she whispered. He stared at her. Stared at me. Stared at the guards and the floor and the polished glass doors. Then he left. Not with dignity, not with fury. Just gone. Outside, the wind was sharp and cold. I inhaled deeply, letting the air burn my lungs clean. Dana pulled out her phone, already switching gears. "I'll handle the follow-up," she said. "Statements, asset actions, protection orders, if needed." "And me?" I asked. She looked at me over her glasses. You go home." I frowned. "Home to the Krill," she said. "To wherever feels safe. Home is not a place. It's a decision." I closed my eyes, letting the words settle. For the first time, they landed. She tapped her phone screen. "The board will issue a public statement by tomorrow. Logan will spin it, but his leverage is gone. The narrative is yours now. Mine." A word I hadn't felt in years, mine. I nodded slowly. "Okay." Dana smiled. "Good. Now go breathe." I stepped away from the Alden building, heels clicking on the pavement, the city opening in front of me, like a map I'd forgotten I could read. Behind me, the empire Logan built was collapsing. Ahead of me, something new waited. Not revenge, not ruin, reclamation. And I was finally ready. I didn't go back to the Krill right away. Instead, I walked. Down Fifth Avenue, past windows full of clothes I didn't need anymore, past tourists, the awantachi snapping pictures, past businessmen, barking into phones. The city buzzed around me, alive, indifferent, comforting in its anonymity. Every breath tasted like cold air and new beginnings. My phone buzzed. A message from Dana. "He's coming apart fast. Be prepared." I tucked the phone away. I was prepared. By the time I reached the Krill, the sun had begun to set, casting long gold streaks across the lobby marble. The concierge smiled as I approached. "Good evening, Miss Lane," he said. "There's a package for you." A small black envelope. Heavy. Hand-delivered. I knew who sent it before I opened it. Inside was a single line written in Logan's tight, angular handwriting. "You don't win this." A threat dressed as a promise. I slipped the note into my coat pocket and rode the elevator up. Dana arrived 20 minutes later, her tote bag stuffed with files, and her expression, the calm before storm type she reserved for high-conflict cases. "Sit," she said, snapping open her laptop as she kicked off her heels. I sat. She opened a folder and slid it toward me. "Your husband is spiraling," she said. "But spiraling men make mistakes, and Logan just made a big one. What did he do?" She turned her laptop to me. On screen was an email forwarded from the Alden Legal Department, the sender Logan Mercer. The subject line, "Urgent need to access archive contract files." Dana tapped the screen. "He tried to request your original acquisition amendments from Alden's vault, the ones that prove your equity stake." My stomach dropped. "Did he get them?" she smirked. "No. Because Alden froze all his access after the meeting. But he tried, which proves intent, which strengthens your claim." She opened another document. "And then there's this. Phone records. Dozens of calls from Logan to corporate counsel PR firms, 2 ex-employees, and my heart stopped Miguel from the lobby." "Why Miguel?" I asked. "Leverage," Dana said. "Logan knows you're close to staff. He's probably trying to figure out who witnessed what." She leaned forward. "This is why we move now. Tonight. Before he scripts a new narrative." She pulled out a recording device and set it between us. "This is your counterstrike." I raised an eyebrow. Recording what Dana crossed her legs, eyes sharp. "The truth. Your proof. Your account of everything that happened, Date's contributions, equity, the internal dynamics he exploited." She clicked the recorder on. "Say your full name." I inhaled. "Avery Lane." "In what position did you hold at Mercer Alden Consulting at its formation?" "I co-founded it," I said. "I drafted 50% of the original methodology and negotiated the acquisition clause that assigned me 12% of the intellectual property valuation." Her nod was slow, deliberate. "Good. Keep going." For the next hour I spoke, not emotionally, not angrily, factually, dates, metrics, contracts, contributions, early drafts stored on my laptop, notes written in the margins of the book he'd stolen credit for, emails proving he used my language in his pitches. Dana listened occasionally, slowing me down, guiding me like a surgeon navigating arteries. When the recorder clicked off, she exhaled with satisfaction. That, she said, is the weapon he never saw coming. I swallowed. What happens now? She stacked the files neatly. I send this to the board, to Alden Legal, and to my forensic accountant. Tomorrow they will initiate an ownership audit, meaning. She said with a quiet smile, the company he tried to steal from you may now owe you money. Real money. And any attempt on his part to erase you becomes documented evidence of misconduct. I leaned back in the chair. A slow, warm steadiness settled in my chest. Dana studied me for a moment. You doing okay? I didn't think it would feel like this, I said. It's not revenge. Not exactly. No, she said. It's justice. Quieter, cleaner, more permanent. A knock interrupted us. 3 soft taps. I froze. Dana's posture straightened. She stood and opened the door only halfway. In the hallway stood Sloane. Her eyes were less swollen now, her posture firmer. She looked stripped down, honest. Can we talk, she asked. Dana looked at me. I nodded. Sloane entered cautiously, like the floor might give way. She clutched a small folder to her chest. I thought you might need this, she said. She handed it to me. Inside were screenshots, hotel confirmations, messages from Logan. Venmo receipts titled Business Retreat with emojis that told a different story. A picture of the Tribeca wine delivery. He told me to delete everything, she said quietly. I didn't. Dana's eyebrows lifted. You understand what handing these over means? Sloane nodded, jaw tense. Yes, he used me. I'm not protecting him anymore. Not kindness closure. Just like I told her. I closed the folder. Thank you, I said. She nodded once, then stepped back. At the doorway, she paused. He's going to come after you now, she warned. Hard. Dana answered for me. Let him. Sloane's eyes softened. Then I hope you hit harder. And she left. Dana shut the door and turned to me. Well, she said that's the last witness I expected to flip. I let out a breath I hadn't noticed I was holding. Is this enough? I asked. She smiled a rare, sharp, victorious smile. Oh, Avery, she said. This isn't enough. She gestured at the stack of files. This is checkmate. And for the first time, the word didn't scare me. It fit. The next morning started with a vibration on the nightstand, soft, persistent, almost polite. Not Logan, not Dana. A number I didn't recognize. I let it ring. The second time I picked up. Avery Lane, a woman's voice asked. Yes. This is Emily from Alden Group. Mr. Alden asked me to notify you privately. An internal audit has officially been opened regarding Mr. Mercer's executive conduct. You may want to check your email. Her tone held something that sounded like quiet satisfaction. Maybe relief. Maybe vindication. Thank you, I said. Also, she lowered her voice for what it's worth. We've been waiting for this. When the call ended, I didn't move for a moment. The room felt still heavier somehow, like the air itself understood the shift. Then I checked my email. Alden Group internal audit notification subject. Inquiry regarding IP ownership and executive ethics attached. A formal copy of the audit order. A request for all documents in my possession. A line acknowledging my potential intellectual property contribution during early stage development. A line Logan swore would never exist. Dana was already calling. You saw it, she asked. Yes. Good. Because this changes the board's obligations. They are legally required to hear you out now. Logan can't bury this. He can't negotiate it away. He can't charm it into silence. Her voice sharpened with focus. You're in the driver's seat, Avery. And he knows it. I didn't answer immediately. There was a strange ache under my ribs, equal parts satisfaction and grief. Grief for the years I gave to a man who turned them into leverage. Satisfaction because that era was over. Whatever happens next, Dana added, you've already won. By noon, the storm hit. First came the messages. One from Logan. We need to talk. Now. Then you're blowing things out of proportion. Another. Do you have any idea what you've set in motion? Call me. Then desperation bleeding through the screen. Avery, please. You don't understand. They're turning on me. I read each one. Then turned off read receipts. Next came the call from his assistant, frantic brittle. Miss Lane Logan has been in his office for hours. He's not himself. Not my problem. Then the driver texted. He's been pacing, door slamming, yelling, asking where you are. Not my responsibility. The last message was from an unknown number. Tell her I'm sorry. Please. For a moment, I almost felt something pity, maybe. Memory. A flicker of the man he had pretended to be. But it passed quickly. Because men like Logan only apologize when they lose control, not when they recognize harm. I went to the window instead. The sky was washed out gray, the city moving like a pulse beneath me. A cab splashed through puddles. Someone laughed on the sidewalk. Life continued. Mine too. At 2:17 p.m., Dana forwarded the first bombshell. Subject Merrill contract, original draft, sent from Alden Archives. Inside were scans from 12 years ago, my handwriting, my signature, my clause in the acquisition draft. Clause 14. BI intellectual property contributions, 12% allocation to co-developer. It was real. It was legal. It was mine. Logan's finished, Dana said. This goes to the board at 8 a.m. tomorrow. They'll suspend him pending review. By Friday, you'll be entitled to a portion of the company he stole. She paused. How do you feel? I looked down at the emerald ring on my finger, the symbol I had once been told was too loud, too sentimental, too much. Now it felt like exactly the right amount. I feel, I said slowly, like someone finally turned the lights on. At 5 p.m., I got the message I knew was coming. From Emily again. He's in the building. He's angry. Be cautious. I typed back, I'm not going anywhere near him. But that wasn't entirely true. At 6:40, I walked to the penthouse one last time, not to see him, but to retrieve something I'd forgotten. A book. My father's handwriting inside. I wanted it back before lawyers divided the rest. The elevator opened to silence, a heavy electric silence. Logan's voice came from down the hall, low, unsteady. Avery, I didn't answer. He appeared at the end of the hallway, the man who once filled rooms with confidence now looked small. His shirt rumpled, his hair disheveled, his eyes bloodshot from lack of sleep. You can't do this, he rasped. You can't destroy me. I didn't destroy you, I said evenly. You did that. You could have come to me, he said, voice cracking. We could have fixed this. I laughed, cold, soft, honest. Logan, you told me to sleep in the guest room until I learned my lesson. He flinched. I did learn it, I said. Just not the one you meant. He stepped closer. Avery, please. I held up a hand. This conversation is over. The board will handle the rest. You don't love me anymore, he whispered. I let that hang in the air. Then I loved the man you pretended to be. I don't know who you are. Something in him broke. He sank into the chair behind him, hands trembling, the posture of a king, realizing the throne was built on sand. He whispered my name like a prayer, or a curse, maybe both, but I'd already turned away. As I walked toward the elevator, the apartment behind me felt like a mausoleum full of echoes, empty of meaning. The doors slid shut. My reflection in the brushed steel looked steady, bright-eyed, alive. Checkmate. And I didn't look back. 3 months after the judgment was stamped and the divorce decree slid across the judge's bench, like the final period at the end of a 12-year sentence, I moved through the penthouse like someone walking through a museum of her own past. Not haunted, not mourning, just observing. The space felt bigger now, not because anything had changed structurally, but because I finally exhaled inside it. I donated half the furniture, repainted the walls, took down every piece of corporate artwork Logan had insisted on, and replaced them with things that felt human. Abstract prints, a photograph of the ocean. I took myself a painting from a friend who'd once said she missed the version of me who used to dream out loud. The penthouse wasn't his monument anymore. It was a blank page. One morning I opened the guest room door. Sunlight fell in long, pale stripes across the floor, dust floating like something soft and forgiving. The old desk I'd claimed during the separation sat exactly where I'd left it, facing the window, the wood worn smooth by my grandmother's elbows than mine. This room used to feel like exile. Now it felt like headquarters. I moved my clothes into the closet, hung the emerald dress, yes, the one Logan hated, front and center, placed the Barnard mug on the desk, set a stack of yellow legal pads beside it. Then I dragged my old suitcase into the master bedroom, unzipped it, and packed every reminder of him into it, cufflinks he left behind, tie clip, a watch box, the cologne that had once smelled like adrenaline and now just smelled like suffocation. When I shut the suitcase, it felt like closing a chapter without slamming it. That afternoon, I walked the 5 blocks to my new office, 2nd floor, a window facing West End Avenue, a freshly printed plaque on the door. Avery Lane, JD Strategy and Legal Consulting. Inside, the air still smelled faintly of paint and lemon oil. The rug I'd chosen warmed the room, softening the sound of footsteps. Tessa, the receptionist I'd hired after she'd made me laugh in a coffee shop without trying, was already setting out her peppermint candies in a little bowl. You have 3 consultations today, she said, smiling. 2 referrals from Dana. 1 walk-in. A walk-in. The thought made something warm press against my ribs. My first client arrived exactly at 9. A woman around my age, eyes exhausted, voice thin. She sat in the gray chair by the window, hands knotted in her lap. "I don't know where to start," she whispered. "It's okay," I said gently. "Most people don't." And she talked. For nearly an hour. About a man who didn't hit her but bruised her in every other way. About friends she'd stopped calling. About a version of herself she barely recognized. "Am I overreacting?" she asked. For a moment I felt a ghost of my old life brushing by me. So many nights I had asked myself the exact same thing. "No," I said. "You're waking up," she cried softly, the way people cry when they haven't used their own voice in too long. When she left, she hugged me, something she didn't plan, something instinctive. "Thank you," she whispered. I held the door open for her and watched her walk down the staircase a little straighter than when she'd climbed it. When I closed the door again, the quiet of the office didn't feel lonely. It felt like purpose. By the end of the month, I had 12 clients. A few wanted help building exit plans. Some wanted financial clarity. One just needed a safe place to say the truth out loud. Some returned, some didn't. Some sent thank you notes with tiny confetti stars tucked inside. I kept them in a drawer. Not because I needed validation, but because they reminded me we were all walking parallel roads without knowing it. One rainy afternoon, as I leaned back in my chair and listened to the city soften under the sound of traffic, a green envelope arrived. Inside was a photo of Sloane, her hair in a messy bun, her cheeks flushed, standing under a wooden sign that read Mountain Breath Yoga. The handwriting on the back was uneven but sincere. "Thank you for everything I didn't understand at the time." I smiled. Not triumph, not superiority, just closure, acceptance, a reminder that sometimes the people who hurt us are also trapped just in a different kind of cage. That night, I walked home through the drizzle. The sky was a soft gray, the kind that made streetlights glow in halos around themselves. When I reached the penthouse, I kicked off my boots, changed into the emerald dress, and made myself coffee exactly the way I like it. Not because someone was watching, not because it made anyone proud, just because it was mine. I stood by the window barefoot, letting the warm mug heat my hands while the city stretched out below me, broad, loud, alive, full of stories beginning and ending at the same time. For the first time in years, my life wasn't a performance. It was a choice. It was mine. Spring arrived almost shyly that year, as if the city wasn't sure it deserved a soft season after the winter I'd survived. I woke earlier than usual, sunlight stretching across the hardwood floors of the penthouse like warm honey. For the first time in a long while, I didn't dread mornings. I didn't brace myself for footsteps, for judgment, for someone else's schedule dictating the shape of my day. My days belonged to me now. The guest room, officially my bedroom, had transformed into something gentle and intentional. A woven basket of blankets, a stack of books on the window ledge, a plant that surprisingly refused to die. The emerald ring on my nightstand caught the morning light in a way that made it glow like it approved of where I'd landed. I showered, put on jeans and a soft white sweater, and padded barefoot into the kitchen. No performance hair, no curated outfit, no listening for Logan's voice before choosing a coffee mug. I reached for the Barnard alumni mug and smiled at the memory. Of the night I found it, hidden behind the fancy china, like it didn't fit the aesthetic. It fits mine. I brewed coffee, sliced strawberries, and made pancakes because my mother was coming over, which meant she'd arrive with the Sunday newspaper opinions and a gentle reminder that I still owed her a real vacation somewhere warm. When she knocked, I opened the door to find her holding a bouquet of tulips and wearing sunglasses, even though the hallway was dim. "You look awake," she said, kissing my cheek. "I am awake," I answered in every sense. We ate at the kitchen island, the windows cracked open, just enough to let in the soft sounds of the street, a dog barking, someone laughing, delivery trucks rumbling past. Ordinary sounds. I hadn't realized how much I missed ordinary. "How's the office?" she asked between bites. "Good," I said. "Really good. Busy." "Helping other women escape men like Logan," she said knowingly. "Helping them remember themselves," I corrected. After breakfast, she left with a hug and a call me tonight, and I stood in the quiet kitchen, listening to the last bits of her perfume fade. Instead of feeling empty, the silence felt earned. Later that afternoon, I walked to Riverside Park with a notebook tucked under my arm. The trees were just starting to bloom small green buds, pushing through branches, like hope refusing to stay quiet. I settled on a bench, opened the notebook, and began drafting the framework for a workshop. I wanted to host something between legal literacy and emotional strategy for women navigating toxic partnerships. I didn't realize 2 hours had passed until the light began shifting gold. When I closed the notebook, a breeze lifted the edges like the pages were ready to fly. The city felt less intimidating now, not because it had changed, but because I had. That evening, I returned home, took off my shoes, and wandered into the study. The room no longer felt like Logan's command center. I'd removed the heavy executive desk and replaced it with a sleek oak table that matched the quiet steadiness I craved. Files were neatly stacked. Plants thrived in the corners, and a soft lamp cast warm pools of light across the space. I turned on a jazz playlist and let the music fill the room. The saxophone drifted through the penthouse, and for the first time in years, I danced a little. Nothing dramatic, just a sway of the hips, a small roll of the shoulders, a reminder that my body belonged to me again. Later, I stood at the window overlooking the city. Taxis dotted the avenues with flickers of yellow. Apartment windows blinked to life, one by one, like a constellation forming in real time. I pressed my palm to the cool glass and breathed in a sense of peace, so deep it almost startled me. I used to think revenge was a moment, one big scene, one dramatic confrontation. But standing there, I realized something quieter and truer. Revenge is the life you build after the storm. Revenge is choosing yourself every single day. Revenge is the freedom to wake up without fear. As night settled over the city, I changed into the emerald dress, just because I loved it, not because anyone else needed to approve. I poured myself a glass of wine, sat cross-legged on the guest room bed, and started reading a book I'd been too afraid to open for years. Halfway through a chapter, I caught my reflection in the window. Hair loose, shoulders relaxed, eyes steady. A woman who didn't look like someone rebuilding, but someone reborn. The kind of woman no one could ever erase again. And as the city hummed below me, vibrant, unpredictable, alive, I closed the book, leaned back against the pillows, and whispered to myself, the revenge was peace. Before I continue this journey with you, tell me where you're watching from. And if you've ever stepped out of someone else's shadow and into your own light, hit like and subscribe. This story, my story, still isn't over.